Hey, Mr. Clash here, and today we're going to have a look at this slight little change in troop combination. Now, I did a video when we first had the Reddit versus forums scrim war. We kind of had this attack. We called it the NATO strike. Basically, what was happening, you started with a queen walk, and as the queen walked in one direction, you would also use the king to start taking out part of the base on the other side with some wizards behind. So you'd almost like how you'd have a pecker walk at 10 or 8, the king would be doing that. And then as the queen came along one side, you just busted into the wall with a bunch of VALKs and some bowlers in the clan castle. And because the person that used that attack in the scrim was called NATO, we just kind of nicknamed it the NATO strike. Now, I've got a video on that. I'll just put the link up to that now. If you wanted to have a look at that video, it's got 4 attacks to show you how devastating that is. Now, here we've got a slight little variation on that same theme. Now, I've seen this attack 6-starring really quite well in war. So let's just have a look at it. Look at the troops, still 6 healers, 9 VALKs, 8 hogs for the back end. So, like I said, a little bit of a variation. The king is still going to go down on one side, except instead of just having some backup healers with backup wizards with the king and just letting the king peter out, the king ideally would also have some healers onto the king as well. So that's the ideal. And of course, no wall breakers needed because you're going to be dropping a rage spell on the edge of a wall, and of course the Valkyries try to beat through a wall, so you only need a little bit of that rage spell to go over the edge of the wall, just a fraction, to rage those Valkyries, and then they start pummeling through the wall very, very fast. Clan castles come out. That is a consideration. Now, the other consideration is which you can sometimes see is that if it's not a hound in the clan castle and the clan castle can't be gotten to by the queen, such as pushing in or something like that, because the bowlers and the Valkyries can run ahead of the queen, the 2 poisons comes in really, really handy, because no matter what it is, if you can get 2 poisons onto it, say like a baby dragon, then the baby dragon will still go down even though you might not have any wizards or any air targeting troops within the base itself. So here you've got the king now with the healers on the right hand side. So between the archer queen and the king, now you might be able to figure that that's where the Valkyries and the bowlers are going to be coming in. So that is where they will be coming in. So here come the Valkyries now. Bowlers immediately behind, so the Valkyries help the bowlers help the Valkyries. Now once the Valkyries go to the wall, you get a bit of a rage spell, just enough to touch the Valkyries. They burst through the wall and just burst straight out. Now, depending on what you see, in this case you saw that there was a big bomb there, so drop the heal spell, so the Valkyries have the rage, heal, rage, 1 rage for the queen if needed. Otherwise you can possibly sometimes keep that rage up for the troops. Obviously in the NATO strike, what we were doing with that one was having 2 rage and 2 heal. And you're basically going to use the queen's ability if you needed to, instead of using the rage to save the queen. You could use the queen's ability, and that way you'd have all 4 spells for the troops punching into the base. You'd have 2 rage and 2 heal, and you basically go rage, heal, rage, heal. So in this case, still a devastating attack. It doesn't have a million troops left over, but it doesn't need to. If you count the Valkyries have their troops base, your wizards, the bowlers, and so on and so forth. So it's still like having, say, 6 or 7 hogs or 8 hogs if it was a hog attack on the screen. So this is the first attack. Having a look at that, that's a nice little 3-star. And now we'll go and have a look at another attack with the same troop combination. And here we are. Now you'll notice that it's pretty well the same troop combination. You've got your 8 hogs, 9 Valkyries. Now for the Android, we can just count the troops up. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's beautiful. So for the Android people who can only fit 13 icons on the bottom of the screen, you shouldn't really need to scroll to get that last poison, which is the max poison. So you've got the clan castle being triggered by the queen straight away. There's obviously a hound in the clan castle, so wizard to help try and create this little bit of let's just call that the left-hand side funnel. Once that elixir goes down, then the queen will step forward a little bit, but she shouldn't really be wanting to go towards the town hall, so she should start to path north, which means if you if that is how it's going to be, then you would find that the king might want to come up here towards this army camp or something. Depends if you want the king to go into the base or if you're happy to let the king, in this case, path around and take out the trash, because you might decide that you want him to go into the base this time or not. So we know that that's the direction the queen's going to go. Now the other thing is, if you're going to do this sort of attack, what I recommend is have a plan for the queen to go one way. So in this case, you want the queen to go north from where she's starting at the 9 o'clock. You want her to head towards that 12 o'clock position, and then obviously come into the base around here somewhere. Now the thing is with doing that, what happens if she goes south? So in that case, it's always good to have a backup plan. Now I did do a video where I showed this attack in action, and I was talking about the plan itself in terms of backing up the queen walk, why it's good to have a plan B for your queen walk. So what I had done was I had planned for the queen to walk one direction, but if she didn't go there and she walked in the other direction, then I was going to deploy troops a certain other way. So I'd planned that already at the start of the raid. Now I found it very interesting too in this particular base with the double Teslas with the bomb in between them, trying to force the use of a heal spell outside, say what you might get in the hog attack, or certainly devastate a whole bunch of wizards and things like that, if witches, in terms of like a witch base attack. So the idea was, if the queen went one way and it didn't work out and she was going the other way, what was I going to do? If I didn't have the plan, then I would have been stuck and been thinking to myself, oh goodness gracious, now I'm in trouble, what do I do? And I'd have to try and come up with something on the fly. But by having that plan pre-done in my head of what I would do if the queen walked the other way, then whatever happened, I had a plan for one way and I had a plan for the other way. Now that works with this type of attack because it doesn't really matter too much which way you go into the base. And the reason I say it doesn't really matter too much is, we'll watch this attack again. The reason I say it doesn't really matter too much is because let's say this queen was central to the base or anywhere where your walking queen cannot get her. Bowlers and Valkyries both aggro onto the queen naturally. So if the Valkyries are there and the queen shoots at one, then all the Valkyries will go towards the queen and take out the queen very, very quickly. So you don't really have to worry too much about where the queen is when you do this sort of attack. Now, if you watch the other video that I linked at the start of this video, you can see how in some cases the queen is taken out by the bowlers and the Valkyries as they pummel into the base. So if the queen had gone south in this case, you can see she still would have been able to get this other queen, but the CC was taken care of. If the queen had gone south, then the king, drop a couple of wizards down here, you can see nothing really would have targeted those wizards. They would have been able to take that trash out and then send the king down this line, and then the Valkyries and bowlers can pummel into the base in this direction. So instead of coming in from this direction, they would have been coming in from that way. So it's that sort of thing that I'm talking about, of like your plan B. That is, if the queen walks the other way, can you still work? Can you work your plan around so that you don't have to think about too much, where you don't have to sit there going, oh my goodness, what am I going to do now? You don't have to think, what am I going to do now? You already know what you're going to do, and that is deploy the troops in this other way. And that way, if anyone's looking at the attack from the outside, they don't know that it went wrong, because they just see that your troop deployment seemed to be precise, no matter which way it happened. So they wouldn't actually know that the plan actually went wrong because you've got a plan B. So, but in terms of this attack itself, to make up this troop combination is it's pretty devastating. The other version, the NATO Strike version, is devastating as well, but they didn't have the healers on the king, so usually you were sacrificing the king, and the king never really made it to the end too much. It was only going to be a fluke if the king made it to the end with the other style of attack. But this one, the king does make it to the end quite a lot. as well as the queen with her ability intact. Not always, but quite often the queen's ability is intact. And I've seen this work on quite a different set of bases, which is to say bases that are different layouts, maybe congested, maybe not congested, that kind of thing. So it can work on a variety of bases. So that is today's little look at this interesting troop combination. Do try it out in friendly challenges in your clan. It does work pretty well. So we're going to have the question of the day. So the question of the day is, what did the hat say to the tie? What did the hat say to the tie? The hat said, "You hang around, I'll go on ahead." Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in, sticking to the end to hear what the question of the day was. Please give the video a thumb up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.